So, good afternoon and welcome. We are so happy to have you here today for our Leading an Intentional Life workshop. My name is Jacqueline Jaworsak. I work in Thomas Edison State University's Office of Development, and I am a member of the Women's Professional Networks Program Committee. On behalf of the Program Committee, thank you for being here. We're glad you've joined us today, and we're proud of you for taking some time for personal and professional development. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. Please feel free to post your questions for our speakers in the chat. Your questions will be read and answered at the end of the presentation. Today's presentation will be recorded and made available on the TESU YouTube channel and the WPN website. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers, Alex Plinio and Melissa Smith. Alex Plinio is the president of Life and Career Planning, LLC, and the co-founder of the Institute for Ethical Leadership and the Center for Nonprofit and Philanthropic Leadership at Rutgers Business School in Newark. In these multiple capacities, Alex coaches and advises students, managers, and leaders on life and career planning, and executives and their boards on strategic and board development. His business experience includes executive positions in marketing, operations and administration, change management, and startups. Alex has served his community by founding and serving on the boards of many organizations devoted to community and economic development, youth, education, and the arts. Among his many honors, Alex was honored by Thomas Edison State University with the Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa for his distinguished record of state and national service. He is also a veteran, having honorably served in the United States Air Force. Melissa Smith is the managing director of Life and Career Planning, LLC. Melissa has spent her career leading and learning about leadership. She began in Cincinnati, Ohio at the U.S. Shoe Corporation, where she was involved in sales, marketing, training, and operations. She later became the national sales manager for the Easy Spirit retail stores and then president of the Aerosols retail stores, building a team that doubled sales and the number of store locations. During that time, Melissa counseled numerous employees at all levels on career development and growth to assist them in their professional journeys. Melissa is now actively engaged in leadership and management consulting in the nonprofit sector. In this role, she has taught ethical leadership to thousands of Rutgers Business School undergraduate students, and she leads multi-year leadership development programs for emerging leaders and nonprofit executives that focus on personal and professional development. So without further ado, I want to thank Alex and Melissa for being with us today and turn it over to them. Alex and Melissa.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to Regina for inviting us to be a part of this. And thanks to all of you who are here today, spending time with us. We appreciate it and look forward to spending this next hour or so with you. I want to tell you a little bit about the Life and Career Planning program and the Life and Career Planning model that was developed by Alex Plinio a number of years ago. Alex was in the business world, and he recognized that people were working for organizations that had strategic plans, that had goals, that had missions, that had visions, and that in general, people don't do that for themselves. So while corporations have a specific direction in which they're going, too often people don't do that for their own lives. So that is when he developed the Life and Career Planning model. I first got to know about this about 15 years ago when I started working for Alex at Rutgers Business School in the Center for Ethical Leadership. And Alex taught me the Life and Career Planning model, and I started using it in my life, and I found it to be so important and impactful. And I saw how it impacted other people. Over time, I too was able to teach it. So it's a proven and tested formula that we know works because we've seen how it has changed people's lives. So a few years ago, Alex and I knew we worked well together. We knew the power of the Life and Career Planning model, so we decided to form an LLC, Life and Career Planning, and write a book, which you see in front of you, Time to Get Real, which was published by Rutgers University Press. And we wanted to make sure that this life and career planning model was accessible to anybody. And that's why we decided to do this. So it is now available. We'll be telling you more about it. So that's how we came to write this book. But why did we write this book? Well, I told you how not enough people have a disciplined approach to their life. And the life and career planning model offers this to people. And it leads people to actions that result in personal and professional success. It's unique in that the model does address both your personal life and your professional life. It's important that they're integrated together because you really can't separate them. And so it's important to go about it in a disciplined way. And it also allows you to use your plan as a decision-making model. So no matter what life throws at you, you've got your plan put together, just like companies do with their strategic plan. It allows you to use it as a decision-making model to make the right course corrections as they come available. It is also for people of all ages. We have tremendous interest from young people or parents of young people who want to have their high school or college or recently graduated family members be able to have a better direction to their life. It's very helpful for people who are in middle age who have come a long way but recognize, is this a direction where I want my life to be? Or there are things going on right now that I'm not happy with, and how do I incorporate these changes in my life? The model can help you do that. Or as people are getting towards the glide path to retirement, how do I see my life after retirement? What do I want to do with myself? How do I want to spend the last third of or quarter of my life doing meaningful and important work that makes me feel good about myself? So that's why we wrote Time to Get Real. And it's really all about taking control of your future and developing a strategic plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex now because he is going to be taking you through the details of the model.
Thank you. I said hello, everybody, and thank you for having us here. You know, when I was in business or nonprofit or government work, I always ran across people who were letting life happen to them rather than being intentional about what they wanted to do with their life. And when I first developed this model over 20 years ago and have subsequently made changes in it, I've been using it to help people that have worked for me when I was a CEO of a global nonprofit with offices in 50 countries around the world, or when I was with Prudential Financial and headed up marketing areas or the Prudential Foundation. No matter where I was, I found individuals who needed and wanted coaching. And most of the data and information you get on research today demonstrates that more than 80% of the people in companies, government, or business or nonprofits desire some form of coaching. As a matter of fact, when I was a CEO, one of the first things that I did, even when I ran billion-dollar businesses, was to get myself a coach. So this model is based upon the experience that I've had and its usage in the marketplace. If you look at the model, it has three components: an examination of self on the left side facing you, an examination of your work and career, and also the development of a plan for implementation in your life. The arrows depict the exact way in which the coaching takes place. The book provides you with the examples of how to proceed. And it's a normal flow for coaching of any individual. We typically will start on the left side with a look at oneself, what your interests are, what your personal values are, how you see your life purpose. Do you have life balance? What are your relationships like? Once we've examined that part of your life, we then move toward the work and career. How do you see and others see your personal strengths and development? What about the organization you work for? Do you resonate with the mission and values of that organization? And one of the most important areas on work and career is financial plans. We have found, for the most part, that 70 to 75% of the people who think they have financial plans really don't. They have investments or savings, but they really don't have a financial plan. And what about your current and future position, which I'll get into a little bit later? Have you thought much about that? Once we examine yourself and we examine these aspects of your career, we ask that you combine those into a personal vision. The vision asks the question, what will life be like for me at a certain point in time? That point in time can be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. We don't recommend going much further than that, but the vision at least tells you where you're headed. We then analyze and learn from all of the work that's been done in examining self and career, and we combine that analysis and learning into a draft plan. Melissa will be talking about relationships later, but we suggest that the draft plan be shared with at least one key relationship. And once it's shared, that you go into the actual actions of the plan. And the plan is like any plan you would have at work. It has strategies, goals and objectives, timelines, who you're going to talk to, what you're going to do, what you hope to accomplish by when. And that plan, once it's implemented, is meant to place you on a track so that at least every 2 years it's updated. As a matter of fact, we know that you don't really need to have coaching all the time unless you want it, because the book and the plan that you have, once updated every 2 years, or we say updated when a major life event happens. For example, someone offers you a job. Does it fit your plan? You're fired. What's next? You have a birth in the family. What now? How does that affect your financial plan, and so on? So that is the model that you'll find in the book, and it's also the model that we use and all of our coaches use in coaching individuals so that they end up with a strategic plan for their life. Now I want to go to the next slide where I can focus on one area of this to give you some idea of what we're talking about, realizing that this is nothing more than a synopsis of what we would typically do, but that we want to give you a flavor of how this would impact you. For example, I want to focus on current and future position. What about your current position, and what about your future position? Can I get the next slide, Melissa? Do you actually know, and can you answer the question, what is your next position? Can you describe your next position? Can you write a job description for the position that you envision? When we're working with a client, we find that there's a problem that exists. Most people want to go right to the action stage without all of the thinking that goes through the development of the plan. And as a result, people make mistakes. They choose the wrong job at the wrong compensation, or they're going after the money and not the job that'll give them satisfaction, or they're in a position where they haven't looked at their life balance to understand that this particular position won't help them there, and so on and so forth. So one of the key things to do is to be able, and I don't know if you've done this already, but write a job description for the position that you envision, and what are the key ingredients of that next position. If you don't know what your next position is, you don't know where you're going. If you have a next position, other than saying my boss's job, you still don't know where you're going. Now, there are questions that you have to ask yourself. How do I prepare to tell my story to whomever I'm going to talk to? One of the things that the life and career planning model does, it makes you so ready for a job interview. You know your values, you know your relationships, you know the life balance you want, you know the compensation you need. So you can prepare exceptionally well for the interviews that you might want to go on. The other thing is, do you know anyone who can help you along the way with these relationships that Melissa will talk about? Maybe an executive who you can talk to in a confidential manner. And the other thing is timing. How long are you willing to wait? We have found in our coaching that some people are really willing to wait too long. They're actually ready in a year or two, but they put it off and put it off and put it off. And before you know it, they're going after a position 5 and 6 years down the line they should have done in 2 or 3 years. Then there's the need to develop the specific goals and measures that you need to attain this particular goal of a new position. Can I have the next slide, Melissa? So what are some of the key questions to consider? Here they are. I'll go through a couple of them. You want to know, are you able to spend time outside of work on the things that are important to you? Is the job going to eat you up and are you going to be a workaholic? Is that the job you want? Does your work that you're going to be doing support your personal values? Does the job you're currently in support your personal values? One of the things you learn in the model is, what are your personal values? And then you can use that almost as a screen against any job and your current position. Is this job currently, or is my next job something that my personal values resonate with? In addition, does the job you have and the job you want place you in a position where it's going to help you sufficiently enough in developing the skills and abilities that you need for that next position? In other words, will it be a developmental position for you? You know, I've coached some people that have come to me, and one in particular that I vividly recall, who had two jobs that they were being considered for. And this person, Joe, said to me, I don't really know which one to take because they're both fairly similar. One asks some more of me, but they're both okay in compensation. So I said to him, Joe, which job scares the hell out of you? And he said, well, this one scares me a bit. I said, why? He said, because it's going to ask me to develop things that I really have not developed in the past. In other words, Joe, it's going to force you to grow. Yeah, that's the job you want. You want the job that's going to add to your suitcase of tricks as you move along in life, that helps you to be a better person and a better employee. So this is a very short dive into what you might be examining in terms of what you would look at your current position and your future position. But the key is to think about both. How do they match up with what you've learned when you've gone through this particular model? Do you see a match with your interests, with your life balance, with your compensation, with your personal development? All of these things are examined in the life model. Melissa, you go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. So Alex took you through one of the components of the career side of the life and career planning model that will allow you to think very critically about your current and future position. And I am now going to focus on one of the topics in the self model. And I'm going to be taking a little bit deeper dive into the topic of relationships. In our life journey, we have people who come along with us. And as you learn when you read the book, we put these relationships into some various buckets. And I want to take you through the buckets. One of the important things is your key relationships. You heard Alex talk about that already, that when you develop your life and career plan, we strongly urge people to share it with a key relationship. A key relationship is somebody who knows you very well. They know your innermost thoughts. You can share with them very openly. These are people who are willing to tell you the truth, even when sometimes you don't want to hear it. And you know who I'm talking about. And they're people who care about you. They understand you. They want the best for you. They're very close family members, very dear friends. And they will give you unvarnished feedback. And these relationships are important to us. And they're the companionships that we value and nurture as we grow older. If for some reason you don't have one of these key relationships and you want one, you may want to think closely who a candidate would be, who's somebody that you already feel comfortable with. You've developed a very positive relationship, but what are some things that you can do to make it become a key relationship where that level of trust and communication indicates that it's a key relationship? And that's something that we encourage people to develop. Perhaps you want additional key relationships or develop your first initial key relationship. But being realistic, there are some people who perhaps aren't comfortable with having somebody quite that close in their life, and we recognize that. So we also suggest that if that's the situation, to find somebody who can serve as a mentor or a life coach to you, because it is very helpful to be able to get really clear feedback to help you make the best possible decisions and help you grow as a person. So that's a little bit about key relationships and why we consider them to be very important. And then next one is positive relationships. And those are the relationships that bring a lot of joy to your life, people you enjoy spending time with, people who you have similar values with. They're people who you work with, the people you like to eat lunch with, the people who you go and, kind of share ideas with and brainstorm together. These might be your neighbors. They could be people who you know from your church or synagogue that you enjoy spending time with. It could be a club you belong to. I remember that when I first moved to a new town, I knew nobody, and I really was missing having some day in and day out friends. And a woman who I had just met casually, maybe a couple of weeks before, came up to me in the grocery store and she says, "Melissa, we're starting a book club. Would you like to join?" And I so eagerly said yes, because I needed friends. And I think it's 10 years later, we still have a book club. And these are my wonderful, positive friends. We talk about children and grandchildren and life events. And so these are the people that just really bring that level of joy to your life. They're easy relationships to have. And I think that it's important that we nurture these positive relationships. If you are looking for more positive relationships in your life, look for opportunities. Perhaps there's volunteering you could do. Look for a club to join. Maybe reach out to people who you really enjoyed in the in the past, and you just happen to lose touch with them. So we really encourage nurturing these positive relationships, and most importantly, enjoy them. Well, then there's the other side of relationships, what we call negative or toxic relationships. And it's unfortunate, but it's hard to escape in life having those kind of relationships, because we don't get along with everybody, or there may be people who just simply don't care for us and they become negative or toxic relationships. So negative relationships can be people who we just have a harder time getting along with. Maybe you got off on the wrong foot. I certainly have had negative relationships. Or, maybe they're people you just try to avoid. I have found that I've had negative relationships that over time, maybe I've adjusted a few ways I've approached things, and they got turned into sort of a neutral or positive relationship. So the negative relationships are hopefully easy to avoid or to turn positive over time with some effort and communication. The relationship that can really be troublesome is a toxic relationship. And what I mean by toxic relationship, these are people who exhibit controlling behavior over you. Maybe there's a level of dishonesty to this person. They treat you in a disrespectful way. There is a lack of support that they give you. Perhaps they exhibit resentment or jealousy towards you. They actively work to sabotage you. And that is a relationship that simply can't be tolerated in your life. We can't allow these people to drag us down. We need to have people in our life who can lift us up. And so one thing that we really encourage in the life and career planning model is to think critically about, is there somebody in your life who you consider a toxic relationship? Are you putting up with it when you really shouldn't? And what can you do about it? And our suggestion is, don't delay, address the situation, and make a plan. Well, how do I make a plan? Well, one of the things you can do is to seek a key relationship or a mentor, because sometimes in these situations, it's overpowering, we're feeling demoralized, it's very personal, and you may not be able to see the situation as clearly as you might. So it's very helpful to talk about this with somebody else. Just sort of spill your guts about it and say, I am really struggling. This is what I'm dealing with. Help me see clearly. Help me explore different options on how I can handle this relationship. And see if there's something you can do about it. Analyze, is this a relationship that can be repaired? Or is this a relationship that I need to completely pull away from? Meaning, if it's a boss, perhaps, or somebody that you work with regularly, you may have to consider finding another job if the situation is that toxic. But you shouldn't be putting up with a toxic relationship that is dragging you personally and professionally down every day. That is just too much to bear. If the relationship can be repaired, remember, both parties need to want to repair it, and both parties need to be willing to make some changes. you can't fix a toxic relationship on your own unless the other person is also willing to make it into a more positive relationship. So do bear that in mind. And so that's something that we really suggest you think critically about. In life and career planning, we want you to experience as much joy and happiness and life satisfaction as possible. And addressing toxic relationships is important for us to be able to move forward in a positive way. So that is my discussion about relationships and the importance in our life. And so I encourage you all to enjoy and nurture your key relationships and positive relationships, and put an effort on addressing how you want to handle or disentangle from negative and toxic relationships. Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of bring it all back together.
Melissa, two things. One,
Yeah.
I'm going to make a comment or two on relationships, and I'd
Great.
like you to make a comment or two on next job,
Great.
current next position. We were having a seminar, Melissa and I, and an individual, when we came to this subject area of relationships and got to the part about toxic relationships, said that she had a boss who she reported to who just treated her absolutely terribly. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, he literally yells at me in front of people. He's even cursed. I said, well, how long has this been going on? She said 7 years she'd been there. I said, 7 years? Why are you putting up with that? She said, well, I was really concerned and afraid about looking for another position. So here we go. An individual in an untenable position who is afraid to move ahead. Well, she had not thought much about what's the next position. She hadn't thought about how to go about looking for that next position. She really even hadn't thought about how to approach her boss and to confront the situation. So when individuals find themselves in this kind of a position, they typically wait too long. They lose something of their life in the transition they're going to make anyway. In this individual's case, after this 7 years with this company, she finally left it to get away from that particular kind of environment. She probably should have left it a lot earlier, but she hadn't been planning intentionally. She hadn't been thinking about her future. She was thinking about her present. And in the economic environment, she was concerned about making a movement. There's a tolerance for risk that individuals have to have in order to make decisions about what they want to do next. You need to understand what your tolerance for risk is. And by going through this kind of coaching, you're able to discern for yourself not only what's next, but how long you're willing to wait for what's next, and how long you're willing to put up with a situation you really shouldn't be putting up with. Melissa?
Thank you, Alex. And I'll circle back to your topic a little bit, which is current and future position. And I want to share a quick story of a woman that I recently spent time coaching. She is a physician in a medical practice, and she'd been there about 20 years. And she had a thriving practice there, but she wasn't happy. She felt like she was overworked, that she didn't have enough control over her life and decision-making. And she felt like she wasn't able to practice the kind of medicine that she really wanted to. So she came to me and she says, Melissa, I want you to help me think through going out on my own and developing my own practice. And I said, I'm happy to do that. And while we're exploring all this, I want you to know that in life and career planning, we also say, see if you can find professional happiness where you are, see if it's possible. So let's kind of think about both of those tracks at the same time. But she needed to do a certain level of due diligence to really understand the options ahead of her. So I helped her figure out, well, what would it take from her to start a private practice? And we went through checklists and we developed a business plan, and she talked to people, and she recognized that there were benefits to that. But she also recognized that there was a tremendous amount of personal risk she'd be assuming. There was an entire staff currently at her medical practice that did a lot of things for her, ordering supplies, answering the phones, processing paperwork, all of those things that she really hadn't thought about the benefit of. And we worked on this together for a number of months. And because she had done this real deep dive into what it would take, she started recognizing some of the benefits if she stayed where she was currently. So she went to one of the managing partners of the practice and she sat him down and said, "These are my issues. This is my situation. I'm considering leaving, but I also want to tell you what I'm looking for." And they negotiated back and forth over the next few weeks. She discovered that the practice very much valued her, wanted her to be happy, and they made some changes to her contract and some of the other things so that she found it was most advantageous to stay where she was. But by taking that time and working with a trusted advisor, in this situation, that was me, and really thinking through critically about her job future, she was able to make the best possible decision. She just didn't hastily exit out without a plan. She thought critically about her future and her vision and was able to make the best possible decision for her.
Thank you, Melissa. You know, that's one of the key questions when you develop your plan and you're intentional about what you want to do, which is, can you get what you want where you are? Now that encompasses an awful lot of things. Can you get what you want in personal development where you are? Can you get what you want in compensation where you are? Can you get what you want in relationships where you are? Can you get a values match where you are? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the key things that comes out of being intentional about what you want to do is you're able to answer that question. And if you can get what you want where you are, why leave? Let people know what you want. Have those discussions, get help where you are to get what you want. But if you can't get it after you have those discussions, then what's next for you? What's your intentional plan? I'd like to just go back to the model for a minute to sort of summarize it now that you've seen through Melissa and my explanations about it in a cursory review about two areas. If you've examined yourself, you know what gives you joy, you know what you need for life balance. You understand that you need to develop more relationships of one type or another or get rid of some. If you understand that your current position resonates with the things that you need as an individual. If you also understand that you're going to be working in areas today that require you to cross age groups and cultures. In the book, for example, we talk about the fact that you can have varying age groups being supervised by one supervisor. Does that mean that people need to be treated a bit differently? How about different cultures? You know, I can vividly recall when working in a global organization, how I, with a very Americentric attitude, came into the organization and began acting like the typical American executive. It literally took me a year and a half before I recognized that dealing with so many different other cultures, remember 50 countries around the world, required me to change, which I did in order to be an effective executive. And that can happen today right in the United States with our diversity, because we're welcoming diversity, we want diversity, and if you want to be in a position where you're working with others of diverse cultures and backgrounds, it's really important to understand that. And what about the organization mission, vision, and values? If you know what your purpose is in life, and have you ever documented it? Have you ever said, this is my purpose, and written it down? If you have, then you could look at that as a contrast with the organization you work with or the one you're about to join. Look at their mission and your purpose. What about your personal values? Do your personal values match the values of the organization you're in or the one you're going to go into? And how about the culture of the organization? Can you compare and contrast these things to know that you're not going to be making a mistake by either staying or accepting a position where you don't really want to be? I'd like to take a couple of minutes to talk about financial plans, a little more than I have anything else. And the reason for that is that too many people are in a position where they're in a boat without a rudder. The rudder is the financial plan. The boat is just aimlessly going through the water, depending upon the way the waves are hitting it. What a financial plan, a true financial plan does is it grounds you in understanding whether or not there are certain questions that are easily answered, such as, if I keep doing what I'm doing, will I have enough money to retire? If I keep doing what I'm doing, can I afford to have a child and put that child through college? If I keep doing what I'm doing, can I buy the second house? If I keep doing what I'm doing, can I buy this car or that car? In other words, it's a very practical way to understand how your compensation, your savings, and your investments are going to propel your boat forward. It's going to give you the rudder because, and here's the fact, you can have the most wonderful career and life plan, but if you do not undergird and support it with a strong financial plan, you can destroy your life plan. You must have both, a strong financial plan and a life plan that's intentional, and both together are your boat and the rudder and the motor to take you in the appropriate direction you want to go. And that's why if you have a personal vision, you know, there's the saying that you're all familiar with, without vision, people perish. Well, without vision, an individual can perish because life can happen to you. Let me give you an example in my own life. Because I developed this many years ago, I would estimate that 75% of what happened in my life I made happen. I did it because I wanted to do it. 25% happened to me. Somebody came at me, would you like this job? And I had to react to it. I find in our coaching that it's the reverse. 75% of life happens to people. They maybe control or try to control or be intentional about 25% of it. I don't know where you stand, but you need to get into the 75% that's intentional. You can't control everything. No one can in life because life isn't perfect and things are going to happen. But you can be as intentional as you possibly can with a life plan. And once you've created a vision of where you're going in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now, you know where your boat is headed. You've got the finances, you got the plan, you got the direction, you know where you want to land. And what happens if you can't land there? Well, things happen. Your plan allows you to move off your trajectory and back on again if you want to, or something really drastic happens. You lose a spouse, you lose a job, and it's late in life. You have to redraft that plan, redraft that vision, get yourself back on a track. Don't be rudderless. Don't let the boat not have a motor. Drive yourself in a particular direction. And remember, with a plan that's documented and everything we've just told you gets documented, you are in a position to review that plan periodically. You're in a position to update it. We recommend every 2 years or unless a life event happens. So look at the plan as if it's a tool. You pull it out and you use it. Every 3 months, you're taking a look at it. Let me tell you a little story. When I first developed this, I decided I would try this with my wife, Rosemary. So the two of us documented our life and career plan together, hers and mine. It involved things like, how do we want to be engaged with our children and grandchildren? It involved things like, should Alex stay in this particular job when he wants to go on to something else? And does Rosemary provide the support that he needs for that? I'm talking to you now from my second home in Florida. One of the decisions that we made was, should we buy a second home? That came as a result of the two of us doing the planning together. I have a son who came to me, this is about 6 years ago, and he said, Dad, I was on a temporary assignment in a marketing department. He's a lawyer in the legal department. The marketing vice president really likes me. I'd like to know whether or not I should go into marketing, but I'm not sure. I coached him through a process. He really enjoyed marketing. He said, Mark, what you need to do is go to legal, cut a deal where you get 6 months in marketing and you can always return. Cut a deal in marketing that after 6 months, you'll make a decision as to whether you should stay or not, or go back to legal, which is what he did. You can use this plan that is your plan to help your friends, to help your relatives, because frankly, you become a bit of an expert on what it takes to lead an intentional life. And if you have that, you have the advice that others can benefit from. So with that, Melissa, I want to go on to the last slide here, which says, why in the world would you use this model? Well, if you want to better understand your life and career and how they're integrated, you do this. If you want to develop actions to achieve your life and career goals, you would do this. And mainly, I didn't call it the happiness model because I think people were shied away from it, but that's what it is. It's meant to help you to be as happy as you possibly can be in your life by taking the steps that you need to take for yourself, for your loved ones, and to achieve as much happiness as you possibly can. So it is now 12:48. We're 2 minutes ahead of schedule, I think. And we understand that you have a process that you go through for Q&A. And Melissa and I stand ready to try and respond. Before we do, let Melissa tell you how we can help.
Thank you, Alex. So if you're interested in learning more and exploring developing your own life and career plan, before the book, you had to know Alex or me or attend a course at the Institute for Ethical Leadership. But now that we have the book and life and career planning, the book lays out everything. All the exercises are in the book. You can get it from your normal places to get it, whether it be Amazon, something like that. There's a Kindle version. You can get it on our website. Our website is lifeandcareerplanning.com, and there's a lot of information on that website, including a page that has a downloadable document that allows you to either write out your exercises on a separate sheet of paper or electronically enter your exercises for life and career planning on a piece of paper if you choose not to write in the book. So we have a lot of resources for you online. We have blog posts that take you through a lot of details. So there's a wealth of information in the book and at lifeandcareerplanning.com. We are also tremendously proud that the book has been made into 2 online courses at Thomas Edison State University. One of the online courses is a not-for-credit course. So somebody who just wants to be able to have a more structured way of going through the plan can sign up for the not-for-credit course. There is a link right in our website that will take you right there for more information. And that's an excellent format. And then for matriculating students, just this, I believe it started in November, there's a 4-credit course. So students who are looking for the opportunity to really develop a clear plan for their life and career, take this course on leading an intentional life. It has a mentor that helps them along the way. They get graded for this course. And at the end of it, these students come out with an active life and career plan that can really help launch them into the future and is a powerful addition to the courses they're taking at Thomas Edison State University, because it just gives them, as Alex said, that motor on their boat to help them in the direction where they're going. So we're very proud of these online courses at Thomas Edison State University. We have a number of trained certified life and career planning coaches. One of the wonderful things is that this is very customizable. You might choose to do the course and say, Alex and Melissa, I'd like to engage a coach for a few hours because I could use a little more talking and helping me understand some things and putting things together. Or if you're going through the book, you could certainly engage you can engage coaches for a number of hours that are helpful for you too. So whatever you feel like you need to best support you to actually develop your plan, we're here to help you with. And we also want to remind you that there are probably people in your life who this would be helpful for. I have 2 daughters and 3 stepchildren who having life and career planning has certainly helped them. And we talk about the people that we coach all the time through life and career planning. So those are some of the various ways that you can engage in this. And on the bottom, you can see an email address. Contact us at lifeandcareerplanning.com. If you have questions, please just send an email. It comes right to me. You can just even say, Dear Melissa, because it comes right to my inbox, and I will be answering the questions personally. So if you'd like more information, if you'd even like to set up a chance to chat with me on the phone, I'm happy to do that too. So please use that resource if there's anything that we can do to help you develop a powerful life and career planning for you. Alex, anything you want to add to that?
No, I want to hear if there are any questions or comments that individuals would have, and we stand ready to help in any way that you would need to be helped.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. I see Melissa Melissa Mazak has posted links to everything Melissa Smith just said in chat. So if you are interested in registering for the courses or contacting Melissa and Alex, that information is currently in the chat. So thank you. While we are waiting for people to type questions, if both of you don't mind, I will ask a couple questions that I had throughout the presentation. And as soon as I see if anybody has anything to contribute, I will stop asking my own questions and share with others. It is about 12:55 right now. We realize that people might need to get off right at 1 p.m., which is absolutely fine. As a reminder, we are recording this program, so you will have an opportunity to go back and see it. And I am monitoring chat, waiting for your questions. We don't have to stop at 1 p.m. If people have questions beyond 1 p.m., we're down to party as long as everybody else is and our gracious instructors have time for us.
We're ready.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So my first question is, obviously there's a reason that we are all currently on Zoom. How would you apply your model to kind of COVID times? Like, maybe the change to working from home has been jarring, or it's not exactly working for you. How can this model help people adjust to an entirely new way of working in these extraordinary times?
Yeah. Melissa, I'm going to start and then you can add to it. I'd especially, Melissa, like you to maybe give an example of one of the individuals you've recently been coaching in COVID times. That would be helpful. Yeah. Okay. We've all had to make changes in our life over this last year. Some have been quite depressing for a lot of people. But I think that there's an awful lot to be gotten out of this kind of interaction, what we're doing right now. I don't know about you, but I belong to many different groups that I use Zoom for, and I just love it. As a matter of fact, I was working with a group on the recent election. I was working with another group in my community, and of course, coaching and training coaches and working with our current coaches, everything using Zoom. So I would prefer to have face-to-face coaching. I can get that in person, which would be a first choice. If you can't get it in person, which we really can't do right now, then using Zoom or FaceTime or some other form of media works pretty well. You're able to see each other. You're able to talk face to face, if you will, to one another. But as a matter of fact, there's a third alternative that we've done too, which is telephonic coaching. I had an individual who was very close to retirement that I would do face-to-face coaching with pre-COVID, and then went to telephone, not even Zoom, no kind of social media. And it worked out, frankly, quite well, because you're talking to a trusted partner. It's confidential. If you're in this kind of media, you're seeing someone, and the individual is still able to do the planning, still able to ask their questions, frankly, still able to be pushed a little bit by a coach if one needs to be pushed. So it works, is what I can tell you from our practical experience. Melissa, you want to add one?
Yes, thank you, Alex. The COVID times have absolutely been difficult, and we've all had our own personal experiences about what's made it difficult and challenging, and perhaps there's been some personal growth that we have found despite it anyway. One of the things that I have discovered is Alex mentioned, or actually Jacqueline mentioned, that I run a long-term coaching group for nonprofit executives. And at this point, we meet quarterly. And for a long time, we had met in person, which means people had to get in their car and drive to Newark. And participation, there were people who regularly participated, but it was difficult for everybody to get there on a regular basis. Well, after we could no longer meet in person, we immediately went to the Zoom format. And what we discovered is that our participation increased because people could join us for a Zoom call in their office or in their home, and they didn't have to fight traffic to get there. They didn't have to be out of the office or longer than they needed to. And so actually, it increased the amount of engagement and the opportunity to help each other. And I've also found that with a nonprofit board that I'm on, we actually have more board members participating now because it's easier for them to participate on Zoom than it would be to rush out of the office to get to a face-to-face meeting. And it's interesting that all of these endless Zoom calls, I know it can be exhausting for people from time to time. However, we've all gotten to be pretty good at it, and we know how it works. And I think that we're not used to seeing ourselves on camera. We're, not used to hearing ourselves this way, but we're learning how to adjust to it. And one of the benefits is it's expanded the reach that we can have to people. For example, in the past, we may not have been able to coach as many people with life and career planning because the model was face-to-face. Now, Alex can be in Florida and speaking to somebody in North Carolina, or I could be where I'm in New Jersey and speaking to somebody in California. So it's expanded in a positive way the opportunities that we can offer other people and each other.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about it is you do not know whether or not I have pajamas bottoms on right now. You don't know that. Now, you want to guess?
I think you're wearing shorts because you're going to go golfing later.
You're right, Melissa.
Melissa and Alex, Melissa, can I say something?
Yes, thank you, Eileen.
You all don't know me, and I want to thank you for allowing me to be on today's call. I am one of the coaches, but I wanted to add one thing to piggyback on what Melissa and Alex just said, because Regina, is that your name, Regina?
Yeah.
Regina, excellent question. And the most important thing that I have found with the model is the reflection time. If you think about the left-hand side of the model that Alex and Melissa just presented, the part about self, the part about digging deep about who you are, what is your purpose, what brings you joy. COVID times, the positive, the silver lining to COVID that I've seen is it allows people self-reflection time to really learn about themselves and to really do justice to where they are in their own thinking. And I have heard and seen people change careers because of this going inward and doing some self-reflection. So actually there is some positives to the time that we're in right now to pause and reflect. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so my second question for all of you lovely people. And this is kind of a very me-centric question, because it's kind of how I approach strategic planning and thinking. How does personal creativity play into this model? And how important is creativity in developing your personal life plan and path?
Yeah. I'll start, Melissa. One of the things that comes with creativity when you're doing the planning, I believe, is that you're able to discern multiple options. I remember when I first started doing the planning for myself, there was a period of time when I was interested and I was creatively thinking about things I might want to do. I was interested in doing 3 different things, 3 different careers. And I answered the question as to what I wanted to do by going after all 3 at the same time. Now that's creative, but that can also be quite frustrating at times. But as a matter of fact, it was when I was offered a position as president of American Field Service, which was a global organization. And I was also at the very end of discussions with being a partner in the Deloitte & Touche firm in their consulting practice. And the third one wasn't moving as fast. So it's just an example of what the kind of thinking that can come out of this. I think creativity is also important when you find deficits in the model. For example, if you don't make enough compensation to create for yourself the life that you want, you then begin to have to think about what it is that you're going to do in order to do that. If you're in a career you really love, but you're not making enough money, does that mean you're going to take a part-time job doing something else? If you're in a career you don't like and you need to make a career change, what kind of career change are you going to need to make? The creative process comes in almost every part of this model. There's a part of the model called interests. What are your current interests? One of the questions we ask people are, what else are you interested in? You know, for me, what happened to me is I started painting. I did not do the painting behind me. I wish I had.
Which I really like, by the way.
Thank you. But that was one of the things that happened to me as a result of thinking through the model, because I wanted to have another interest. I was getting too much into my work and not enough into the me part of me, you know. So yes, I think creativity is important. What a coach does, by the way, is spur the creativity.
Right.
Come on, what else can you think of? Isn't there anything else? You know, and what about your values? All right, so one person came to me, they had about 25 different values, personal values. And I said, look, some of these things fall under other values, you know, philanthropy falls under the work that you want to do in the nonprofit field, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, sometimes you have to be creative to bring things down to the level that you want to have them be. It's sort of like one day when I was riding in a cab in New York and I was looking at everybody walking and wrote the poem, Walking Woman in Running Shoes. Where the hell did that come from? You know, it's like things begin to come into your mind as a result of the coaching or the reading, because we ask you a lot of questions. And if you're really serious about it, it takes you to a different level in terms of creativity. Melissa, you want to add anything?
The only thing I want to add, because I think you spelled that out very nicely, is allowing yourself to take the time and space to do this. We are all very busy in our lives, and it's a luxury to sit down or go out walking or do something where you're allowing yourself the space and time to think critically about certain things. And bubbling up from that will be the creativity, or sharing your thoughts with one of your key relationships who will help you bubble up the creativity by asking you questions or reminding you about things about yourself that you may not be thinking about right now. So it's something you should do, is just invest the time in yourself to reflect. As Eileen said, take the time to reflect. and you will be delighted with the amount of creativity and strategic thinking that you can come up with to help you with your life and career plan.
Can I just add something? What this model does and what the coaching does is it puts you in a position you seldom get into.
Right.
It forces you to think.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes you uncomfortable. You know, just to ask you, what's your life's purpose is going to make a lot of people nervous. But with a trusted coach in an environment in which you're taking the time to do it, you will do it. And that's what spurs the creativity.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I don't see any questions from anybody else. So at this point, I think that we are going to end. But thank you so much to our speakers. We appreciate your time, your energy, and your efforts in explaining this model to us. This was a fabulous discussion. Again, we are recording this, so everybody here will have an opportunity to access this talk again. And I see, I will copy the links that Melissa posted for us in chat, and I will make sure that they go into the YouTube video description below when we load the recording online.
Jacqueline, if you get any feedback at all for us, because we want to keep being creative and improving ourselves, so let us know. What do you get?
Thank you, Regina and Jacqueline. And thank you all. We so enjoyed spending this time with you. We appreciate it. And don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. I'd be happy to connect with you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you.